quickly introduce myself. I'm Emily Kane Miller, founder and CEO of Ethos Giving and Ethos Tracking. Bree, would you like to share a bit about yourself?
Sure. Yes. I am the newly minted member at Ethos Giving. Very excited to be joining Emily and the Ethos Tracking team. And this is my first joint webinar. So thank you for having me today.
First of many, I'm confident.
Yes.
Amazing. So just some housekeeping items while we have other folks joining. We would be delighted, truly, to take questions. We will be running through this list in sort of power chat mode. And Bree and I decided that, we've all attended enough webinars where people are sharing decks at the same time. It makes your face very small. And, we just want to have that personal connection on Zoom. So we're not going to share the deck, but we did pop it into the chat. If you're a visual learner and you want to follow along, we have a beautiful slide deck. We're just not going to be popping it up here on the Zoom. So please feel free to follow along there. And also please feel free to use the Q&A function and share questions. We'll spend about 17 minutes approximately going through sort of our high level perspective, and then would be excited to get questions from the audience and learn about what's most relevant for you all. And we're even happy to do some on the fly consulting if you have some very specific questions about your impact reports, no problem. All right, well, it's 9:32, so I know folks are still trickling in, but I think we'll get started. Well, again, thank you for joining us. We really appreciate you taking the time on a Wednesday morning. The reason that we are here, Bree, how many impact reports do you think that you have read or been a part of creating in your career?
More than I can count.
Yeah.
I see them in my sleep. Yes.
For sure. So, I'm definitely in the hundreds as well. And unfortunately, as you and I both know, there is some imperfections in this process. And we've all read reports, I'm sure, that we can think of that we're like, wow, that did a really good job. Just to be totally candid on this call, those aren't the majority that we see. And that's okay. You're not alone. If your impact reports have room for growth, we're all here to do that work together. But we thought it would be helpful to put together a cheat sheet, as it were, of all the reasons that we believe impact reports just aren't as fantastic as they can be. And it really ranges from, you have a long way to go. So we're going to start with kind of the biggest gaps, all the way to, hey, you're really close, but there are still some things that we can tinker with on the edges to make this a fantastic report. So without further ado, we'll jump right in. So, just to frame this at the top, not all impact reports are created equal. Many of them are for different kinds of organizations with different purposes. So take this advice as sort of a broad stroke and use it to apply to your organization as you see fit. This is meant to be kind of broadest, biggest POV. So none of this is like sacrosanct, and, take it and have it work for you in ways that make sense for your organization. But having said all that, here are our very high level perspectives on why most impact reports are, as I would call them, a C- at best. So, the first problem, which is really kind of the biggest gap where I feel like organizations, you read these and you're like, ugh, like brother, the reports just all over the place. You're not sure what is going on, what the purpose is. You don't necessarily know what the company does. You don't necessarily know what the impact work is. And you certainly are not clear on what the goals are or the values are that people are driving at. So we call this just lack of a comprehensive plan, right? Like fairly common sense, but you would be shocked at how many organizations miss that common sense note at the front. And so, again, these seem obvious, but it's worth repeating. If that's your issue, if you're just sort of like, hey, like, we don't know which way is north, find your due north. That's the most important thing. Figure out who you are, what you're trying to be in the world, and really drive at the report through that filter. Are we answering the question of what are we setting out to be, right? As an organization, as an impact-oriented team, who are we here for, and what are we meant to do? And then once you have that due north, make sure that your report hits that due north again and again. Make sure that this is a values-infused document, that we as the reader are convinced that you actually care. We know that you care, but if the reader can't understand that, we're not getting the impact report done in the way that we need. And then also, if you're pretty far from your goal, like let's say you're just getting started, that's okay.
Mhm.
Talk about that. Say that this is our first impact report, or we just started working on this program. You don't need to say that you are the best organization that's ever done this work in the history of impact. You can be candid. So simply like getting a report on the books is a good thing, but if you are taking the time to do it, have empathy for yourself and empathy for your audience, and make sure you know who you are, what you're saying, why you're saying it, and that's clear. And when the reader's done reading your report, they get your message. There should be no question marks when somebody's finished reading, and I unfortunately am often left with that punctuation in mind. So that is tip number one, problem number one, and tip number one. Bree.
I love that. And that dovetails nicely into challenge number 2 and how we can approach some strategies to address that. To your point, I think authenticity is so humbling, but it's also a great way to connect with the audience. You're not claiming to be perfect or to have achieved every single goal. You're simply laying out your ambitions. So this sort of speaks to problem number 2, the discrepancy between intent and execution. So many companies, their hearts are in the right place. They're just not executing in a way that matches their initial intent. So speaking to your earlier point, authenticity is so important. You want to make sure that the initiatives that you're partaking in align with your company's values, right? So that's just as much what not to partake in as it is what to partake in. So if you're a fast food company, might seem disingenuous to be participating in an obesity initiative. Same goes for an oil company working on, a green initiative, something like that. You also want to make sure that it's woven throughout your entire organization and your entire business plan. It's not a side order or an a la carte. It should be a main ingredient, a main dish, if you will. So something that's a core part of the mission that you're truly touching on through all the work that you do. This can include people all the way up from C-suite, HR, supply chain management, ops, all the way down to interns. So it doesn't matter what title you have, it's just really how you provide ample opportunity for your employees to engage meaningfully. And then the last thing, and I think this is a point you and I are big evangelists for and will always drive home, is data, 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 data. I'll be honest, math and data and science were always things that intimidated me growing up. I considered myself a liberal arts person. However, in my older age, I've come to understand how important data is and that it doesn't need to be scary. So with the right tools, you can, show the math or show the receipts. And that really was sort of the genesis of ethos tracking, why you invented that. You wanted to have sort of the data to back up the claims, to show the veracity of the ESG and social impact work that your clients were doing.
So again, perfect segue. It's like we planned it. Again, just to reiterate, because I know a few folks just joined, what we're doing is helping go from like, okay, these are the reports that have the widest gap to the reports that are, getting close to being what we see as really strong. So number one, know who you are, know what you're saying. Number two, make sure that it's actually true within your organization, and that you're really ticking and tying and bringing it out, and that you're communicating all of that good work throughout the entire business. And then this third piece, which we're getting at, is okay, great. You know who you are. Mm-hmm. It's living within your organization, like there is veracity. And then the third place where we see impact reports really fall short, if you've sort of achieved those levels, is that then it turns into narrative and, like, as I call it, omakase, like, trust me, right? Just trust me. We're doing really great work. And that's, the problem number 3 is that there's weak methodology and weak data management. We are moving, and I know everyone on this call can speak to this because you live this. We are moving from a moment where people are happy to take on face value that you're an amazing organization that's addressing whatever challenges that you say you're addressing, to a trust but verify environment. And I don't even think we're moving to that. I think we moved. We are here. We are in trust but verify. And so we really need to show the homework. It's like new math, right? That my kids are learning in school right now. You have to show that you know how to get that 2 times 2 is 4. It's not just say it's 4. And that's really where measurement and really thoughtful KPIs come into play. So it's not enough to say, we're focused on literacy and the company did X million in donations related to literacy this year and this much volunteerism. Great the dollars, great the hours. Can the kids read better? Mm-hmm. Right? If that's something that you're touting. And so that's really where you need to get into the weeds with partners. Are you engaging with nonprofits? Are you engaging with universities? Are there parts of your supply chain or other people in your industry that are part of this work? Figure out together with those partners how you can identify, hey, we're all setting out to do this. That's why we're spending this time, money, energy. How are we going to know if it's working, and what can we do to show and benchmark in verifiable and fairly simple ways? You don't need to give people a 500-page dissertation, but high level, how can we show people that this work is working and not benchmarking it on what we did from an attendance perspective? Yes, we came to the show, but what actually happened as it relates to the claims that we're making and the promises that we're making. This means, again, this isn't something you can do, unfortunately, and I'm sorry for those of you that are in this situation, a week after everything's finished, right? Like if you go in February and say, okay, guys, it's time to write our 23 report, let's go get all that data, it's going to be hard. So if that's the situation you're in, don't fret, don't stress yourself out. But as you think towards 2024, think about setting up these questions, setting up these KPIs, these monitoring benchmarks, so that all year long you're building your impact report. That's the goal. You're not writing it from scratch and starting from scratch in Q1 when it's due a month later. You're working on it starting January 1st. Because what questions you're going to try to be answering, and you're building that data set week in, week out, month in, month out. It sounds, maybe like it's more work. I promise it's less work. And it's definitely, going to deal with any sort of like stress or anxiety that the team has in those like moments where you're like, like, how are we going to reflect from the last year? That's horrible. Don't, that's the answer. You don't do that. And then again, I know I hit this note in the first comment, but it bears repeating here: transparency. So all of us in writing these social impact reports, we're self-grading, right? Like you take your own paper and you take it home and you say, here's how I did on this test, world, customer, investor. And if every single thing that you grade yourself on, you get an A+, it starts to feel like maybe you're not being completely honest, or that you're not being the fairest grader. So really look at it through a lens, not of skepticism. I think this is all work that everyone's doing and feeling really good about. You shouldn't be like, this was horrible if it's pretty good, but say it's pretty good. And I think that those types of communications and saying, hey, our KPIs were 10 and we got a 9, no problem. Explain what that gap was, or we wanted to get 20% efficacy and we got 15%, but that's still really good, and here's how we're going to get to 20% next year, or whatever it is. Because then it shows that you're paying attention, it shows that you're honest, and it shows that you have a real line of sight toward actual improvement, right? This isn't a check the box thing. It's something that you're living in and really trying to breathe life into. And that's the purpose of these reports, not like, oh my gosh, I'm so amazing. Do you want to see how amazing I am? Because that's not actually where the world is at. And it's not what this work looks like. This work is messy. I don't care what you're working on, any social issue, any environmental issue. I can tell you from 20 years of experience, these are not slam dunk things, right? That's okay. By engaging with it with that truth, it actually shows that you're the real deal. So that's, not always easy, and maybe not always easy to convince leadership, especially, to be able to like show some gaps. But you can use this document, and hopefully that helps you sell in the idea that it's okay to show a little bit of vulnerability.
I love that. And then looking at challenge number 4, it's that the communications are owned by non-subject matters, right? So you could have people in the marketing department, operations, even at the C-level, geniuses. So great communicators, great marketers, but they don't necessarily have the background in social impact or ESG. They don't really truly understand those intricacies and nuances of the work, right? So how can you address this challenge? What you can do as the social impact expert within your org is set your colleagues up for success. Give them detailed briefings. So give them all the ingredients they need to cook a beautiful dish. Emily and I use way too many food metaphors at Ethos Tracking. So take that for what you will. But give them stories, context, colors. Data on its own is dry, and colors and stories and narratives without data are unfounded. So you really want to give them both sides of the puzzle so that you can empower them to create the most impactful report. And then continuous tracking. We're going to say that again. Raise your hand. There's a hand feature, or you could even just, raise it to yourself. How many of you get anxiety come the new year and you start thinking, oh my goodness, how many reports do I need to do? How big is this impact report going to be? We're here to create the framework so that it makes it easy to input the data as you go, so that you don't have this anxiety-provoking mountain of a task come the new year or whenever your report is due. Perhaps it could be a reporter calling, something that you want to message to consumers, other stakeholders like investors, employees. You want to be able to pull that data at a moment's notice, and that's the beauty of Ethos Tracking. And the other thing is cross-departmental collaboration. So this is a no-brainer, but it's really something a lot of people don't invest time in. Take those moments to get to know your colleagues who are going to be carrying the torch of the work that you're doing. So you're getting your hands dirty, you're building the programming, you are reaching out to nonprofit partners, you are liaising with stakeholders. Whoever is going to be sort of communicating the output of that work, go to lunch with them, set Zoom time, have tea, understand how they communicate, become simpatico with them. If you have a natural relationship with those folks who are going to be communicating your work, they'll be able to represent your voice. They'll be better able to represent your voice and intentions.
And I'll just add, they'll be delighted.
Yes.
We have the stats, you have the stats. The people on this call are lucky because your title is has a social impact piece to it. Part of your job is this lane. The majority of the workforce want to touch this work and feel included and feel like they can be a part of it. So, it may seem like, oh, I don't want to ask like the VP of comms to lunch because, they're so busy. I would bet $100 that person would be so excited to get into your world for an hour and understand what you do and how they can be part of the value chain. So just to say. All right, problem number 5. I've lived this. Reports are trying to serve too many purposes. Okay, so picture, if you will, somebody in leadership says, okay, we've got an impact report. Amazing. It needs to go to government. It needs to go to investors. It needs to help drive talent acquisition. We want to make sure that, it gets to customers in a meaningful way. Whatever it is, you're serving a lot of purposes. You have maybe you're a B Corp. You've got some other regulatory requirements because you're in a highly regulated industry. Whatever it is, there's not a single impact report that isn't trying to do a handful of things, if not dozens of things. That's real. Be able to modulate these documents. If that's you, walking into any one conversation with a very meaty, thick 60-page report, whatever it's going to be, that's meant to serve a lot of audiences, when you're going to have a conversation with one specific audience, is not going to serve you. So write this in a way that it's very clear that and whoever your colleagues know, this is almost a modulated toolkit document to say, okay, we're going to go have a meeting with the people in this county. We're going to bring in A, C, and Q from the report, and it voila, becomes a 5-page primer on what the organization is doing that's relevant. I've lived this. I've lived those moments where you walk into a very, local constituent focused conversation with a document that feels very, very global and very big, even though you're doing super meaningful work in that county or that city. And the people who are on the ground in that county look at you like you're, an alien from Mars and say, like, why are you telling me about stuff that's going on internationally and what your goals are related to, like scope 1, 2, and 3? Like, what did you do for the people in my county last year? Right. So really understanding that as you're writing the document, knowing that it's going to have to do all of that other work, but that you're going to want to be able to utilize it for key conversations. Again, whether you're trying to recruit new talent or trying to engage in government affairs, is really, really important. The other reason that it's mission critical from, an impact perspective, which is really why we're all here. If you aren't clear on how you're going to be communicating the work to multiple audiences, it's really hard to stick the landing on actually creating ambitious goals. So when you go in and you say, hey, I know that I'm going to have to bring this and share it with all of these people, it helps make it's very clarifying as you build out the goals related to the work. Again, whether it's a social services issue, an environmental matter, a governance matter, if you can say it with clarity and have it be communicated well to 5 constituents or 10 constituents, you've probably hit a good goal because it's comprehensive, right? Versus something that's like so narrow and like very, very niche that will service maybe one partner, but isn't going to help you communicate to the rest of your partners. So, thinking about those SMART goals, not boiling the ocean, but really driving home value on what it is that you're aiming to do is important. And one good trick, I mean, I often call a friend or a family member to say, hey, I'm working on this thing and I'm trying to articulate like the goals and how I'll know when this work is working. And I'm going to be speaking to somebody who knows less about it than me, which is you, uncle, whatever. Does this make sense? And if it meets the sort of like friends, family model, then you know that it's going to work when you're out in the world trying to communicate very quickly to people that are not as in the weeds on this as you are. I'll say the bottom line, impact reports are a very, very powerful tool to show what it is that your organization is up to. It's very important to create them. So don't get intimidated. Know that this is important, but also know that there's not one size fits all. You want to do them every other year? Great. You want it to be 5 pages instead of 60 pages? No problem. What we really recommend is looking through these tips and tricks. Make sure that it's not boring. Make sure that it's clear who you are and what you want to be in the world. Make sure that it's data driven. And you can really flex these recommendations to any size document and any type of document. And I, obviously stand behind these and have seen them work countless times. So let's open it up for questions, Bree. And I'll also just say we're easy to find on the internet, on LinkedIn. Our emails are available. So if you do have follow-up questions after this webinar, we're also happy to take those.
So giving people a few minutes to enter any questions they may have.
And Bree, if we're not getting them as quickly, we can ask, you're welcome to ask me a question. I'm happy to ask you a question too.
Sure. And one thing that I just wanted to add is that our community is growing digitally. I'm sure that every person here has a wealth of knowledge and resources that they'd like to share. So at Ethos, we're very much of the mindset of abundance and that rising tides lifts all ships. So if there's anything that you're working on, a cool initiative, an interesting partnership, a white paper that you've done, please don't be shy. Reach out, share that with us. Let us sort of leverage our network so we can share these tools with all the good people looking to do good work. Following us on Instagram, we're at Ethos Giving. Engaging with us on LinkedIn, we're looking to make these really resource-rich areas for other colleagues in the field. Great.
Okay. Some great questions. So the first question that came in, is there an example of a good impact report that we can share with you? So, I'll say there are many impact reports that I think are really, really strong. One that I often look to is Kroger's. Kroger's not a client, I have no reason to be promoting Kroger. And I'll tell you the reasons that I really like it. It's very clear that their impact work is in business to address food insecurity and food waste. They're dogged about it. You understand why that makes sense for them as a business, and that's what they do. And then they go very clearly through all of the ways that they, in kind, cash, investment, philanthropic investment, address food insecurity. And they also tag it with other sort of macro efforts that are happening. So they use UN Sustainable Development Goals. You can use, sort of other rhetoric, but they frame their work in context of a larger global effort. So they're like, hey, like, here's what we do. Here's what it looks like. Here's how it's additive. And then here's how we're kind of playing in the same sandbox as others if you want to kind of connect with a bigger purpose. Kroger's obviously, large. That may not make sense for your organization, but I would say that that's a really good report to look at. Okay, so how do you align the purpose? And Bree, let me know if you want to take a first stab at this. How do you align the purpose of your impact report across multiple audiences?
So great question. For that, I would say that you don't, right? You don't have to create a one size fits all approach. To Emily's point earlier, have an internal, master doc, if you will, that includes all the data, but then tailor kind of specific spun off little reports that hones in on the data that's relevant to that specific audience. Don't try and boil the ocean. And also, you're not a mind reader. If there's a specific stakeholder, engage with them, have a conversation. What data is most important to you? What are you looking to see? And then build it out responsibly.
Yeah. And I'll just add, if these efforts are too bendy, like you're like, oh, like you want me to be this, I'm this. You want me to be this, I'm this. Then it's unfortunately not really that impactful, right? Like if you could be anything any day, it often is impossible because you're in business to be a CPG company or a landscape company or whatever it is that you do. You're not in business to be necessarily an impact partner. And so you can say, look, like here's what we do really, really well, and we do it over and over and over again. And you may need to communicate it differently or talk about it from like a geographic perspective differently depending on audiences. But it's okay to say like we're hunger people, or we're literacy people, or we're environmental justice people, or whatever it is that you are. And this is an anonymous attendee, so I don't know, but if you do want to chat about this offline, I'm happy to discuss. Diego asks, thank you for the question. What tools or resources can nonprofits use to mine and track their data better? So, Diego, appreciate the question. We're actually running a similar webinar for nonprofits, I think next week, which I'll make sure gets on your radar. But this is really, it's like Alice through the looking glass. I would say it's a very similar story on the other side of the coin. Focusing on data, knowing how to build smart KPIs so that you're actually tracking information in a way that helps to show not just attendance, but growth over time or value over time is really critical. And, it goes without saying, Ethos Tracking is a product that's available for nonprofits as well as corporations and foundations. So if you are looking for a tool, we're happy to share our tool, but there's also a ton of stuff on our website, www.ethostracking.com, that it really is just like liftable. Like you don't have to use our system, you can use our models, and think about the framing that we've provided. And, again, one of the reasons we love seeing nonprofits on conversations like this, we're all talking to each other and trying to figure out how to speak each other's language, right? So if everybody's saying, hey, I'm a nonprofit, I'm in your partner list, I know you, corporation, need to communicate this to your important stakeholders. How can I give you data so that you can be successful? That's going to be a very healthy partnership that I would argue will continue for a long time, because everybody's getting what they need: resources, support, data, information, content. And it's okay to say, hey, like I want to be a partner to you in a meaningful way. What can I give you from an information perspective that's going to help you do your job better? So Diego, I again, I'll bet $100. There's a lot of bets taking place on this webinar. If you called the partners that are your key donors, corporate partners, foundation partners, and said, hey, I want to set you up for success, what type of information can I filter to you and bring to you so that you have things available for your webinar, that person will like jump up and down and say, oh my God, thank you for asking. Because it's probably not going to be a run of the mill grant report. It'll probably be more detailed and specific, and they'll really appreciate that.
And the last thing I'll add right before we're at time is that the framework that Ethos Giving has built, they're called levers, sort of different buckets that you can activate in order to, fulfill a social impact goal. So it's everything from in-kind, volunteering, cash, employee engagement. That framework, it's free. You can see it on ethostracking.com. That's sort of a great rubric to begin with if you want an anchor for where to start. So thank you so much, everybody, for joining us today. So wonderful to have your questions and your interests. Please stay in touch, and perhaps down the line, one of you will be on the other side of the webinar co-presenting with us. So thanks again. Reach out if you have any questions.